What if the reason your hair isn't growing has nothing to do with the shampoo you use, the oil you apply, or even genetics, but everything to do with taking the wrong amount of zinc for your body? Most people think zinc is zinc. You take it and hair magically grows, but that's not how the body works. Today, I want to show you how to personalize your zinc intake so it actually supports hair growth instead of quietly working against you. Zinc is one of the most important trace minerals for hair follicles. Every time a hair strand forms, zinc is involved in cell division, protein synthesis, and enzyme activation. If zinc is too low, hair growth slows down, shedding increases, and the scalp environment weakens. But here's the part most people don't talk about. Too much zinc can be just as harmful as too little. That's why a personalized approach matters. Let's start with why zinc needs are different for every person. Your body doesn't absorb zinc the same way as someone else's. Factors like digestion, stress levels, diet quality, age, medications, and even how much sweating you do can drastically change how much zinc you actually retain. Two people can take the same dose, and one benefits while the other develops imbalances. If you have poor digestion, low stomach acid, or gut inflammation, zinc absorption drops significantly. You might be taking zinc every day and still be deficient at the cellular level. On the other hand, if your digestion is strong and your diet already contains zinc-rich foods, adding high-dose supplements can push you into excess without realizing it. One major sign that your zinc intake is too low is diffuse hair shedding, meaning hair falls from all over the scalp rather than just one area. You may also notice slow regrowth, brittle strands, a dry or irritated scalp, or increased dandruff. Outside of hair, low zinc often shows up as frequent infections, slow wound healing, white spots on nails, and reduced sense of taste or smell. Now here's where personalization really comes in. If you're under chronic stress, your zinc needs go up. Stress burns through zinc very quickly because zinc is required to regulate cortisol and support the adrenal glands. This means someone under long-term mental or physical stress may need more zinc just to maintain normal hair growth. High sugar and refined carbohydrate diets also increase zinc loss. Zinc is used heavily in insulin production and blood sugar regulation. If blood sugar is unstable, zinc gets depleted faster, and hair follicles are often one of the first places to suffer. But let's talk about the other side, because this is where many people unknowingly create problems. Excess zinc blocks copper absorption. Copper is essential for hair pigmentation, collagen formation, and proper blood flow to the scalp. When zinc intake is too high for too long, copper drops and hair can become thinner, weaker, or lose its natural color earlier than expected. This is why blindly taking high-dose zinc for hair growth is a mistake. Hair health depends on balance, not megadoses. A personalized protocol always considers duration, dosage, and dietary sources. So how do you tailor zinc intake to your needs? First, look at your diet. If you regularly eat red meat, seafood, pumpkin seeds, eggs, and dairy, you may already be getting a decent baseline of zinc. In that case, a low to moderate supplemental dose may be enough. If your diet is plant-heavy and low in animal protein, zinc absorption is usually lower due to phytates, and your needs may be higher. Next, consider how your body responds. Hair growth is slow, so zinc-related improvements don't happen overnight. It usually takes several weeks before shedding slows and new growth begins. If you notice improved scalp comfort, reduced hair fall, and stronger strands without dryness or fatigue, that's a sign your intake is closer to your ideal range. If instead you notice nausea, digestive discomfort, headaches, or unusual fatigue after zinc supplementation, that can be a sign the dose is too high for your system. Hair growth should never come at the expense of overall balance. Another overlooked factor is timing. Zinc competes with other minerals like iron and calcium for absorption. Taking zinc at the same time as high calcium foods or iron supplements can reduce its effectiveness. Personalizing zinc isn't just about how much you take, but how and when you take it. Hair follicles are also extremely sensitive to inflammation. Zinc works best when combined with an anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Adequate protein, healthy fats, proper sleep, and blood sugar control all determine whether zinc actually reaches the hair root where it's needed. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people copying someone else's zinc protocol. What worked for one person on the internet may be completely wrong for your body. Hair loss is not a one-size-fits-all issue, and minerals never work in isolation. The goal is not to force hair to grow, but to remove the obstacles that are blocking growth. Zinc helps when it fills a real deficiency and supports normal follicle function. When used correctly, it can help stabilize shedding, strengthen existing hair, and create the right environment for regrowth. If you want healthier hair, stop chasing extreme solutions. Start paying attention to balance, absorption, stress, and nutrition. When zinc intake matches your unique needs, hair growth becomes a natural side effect of a healthier system. If this helped you understand your hair on a deeper level, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who's struggling with hair loss but doesn't know where to start. When we talk about zinc for hair growth, most people assume there's a single correct dose that works for everyone. Take this much zinc and your hair will grow. But the body doesn't work like a machine with one fixed setting. Zinc needs are highly individual, and understanding that difference is the first step toward R&D, real, lasting hair improvement. Zinc is involved in nearly every stage of hair follicle activity. It plays a role in DNA replication, cell division, keratin production, and enzyme activation. Every time a hair follicle shifts from a resting phase into a growth phase, zinc is required. If zinc is low, that transition becomes weak or delayed, and hair stays stuck in shedding mode longer than it should. But here's the key point most people miss. Zinc does not work in isolation. Its effectiveness depends entirely on how well your body absorbs it, uses it, and balances it with other minerals. Digestion is one of the biggest factors that determines how much zinc you actually get from food or supplements. If stomach acid is low, zinc absorption drops significantly. Many people today have low stomach acid due to chronic stress, aging, or long-term use of acid-suppressing medications. They may be taking zinc daily and still remain deficient at the cellular level. In these cases, hair loss continues, not because zinc doesn't work, but because it never reaches the follicle in sufficient amounts. Gut health also plays a major role. Inflammation in the intestines, food sensitivities, or conditions that damage the gut lining can interfere with mineral uptake. Zinc is absorbed primarily in the small intestine. If that area isn't functioning properly, your zinc intake on paper may look fine, but your hair follicles are still starving for it. Diet quality further changes zinc needs. So, Mione who eats zinc-rich foods like red meat, shellfish, eggs, and dairy regularly may already be meeting most of their requirements through food. Adding high-dose zinc supplements on top of that can create imbalances over time. On the other hand, people who follow plant-heavy diets often absorb less zinc because plant compounds called phytates bind zinc and prevent it from being absorbed efficiently. For them, zinc needs may be higher even if their intake appears adequate. Stress is another major factor that changes zinc requirements. Under stress, the body uses zinc at a much faster rate. Zinc is required to regulate cortisol, support adrenal function, and stabilize the nervous system. Chronic stress quietly drains zinc stores, and hair follicles are especially sensitive to that depletion. This is why people often notice increased shedding during stressful periods, even if their diet hasn't changed. Blood sugar balance also influences zinc status. Zinc is essential for insulin production and glucose metabolism. Diets high in sugar and refined carbohydrates increase zinc usage and excretion. When blood sugar is unstable, zinc is diverted toward metabolic control, leaving less available for hair growth and scalp repair. In these cases, simply adding zinc without addressing diet rarely produces lasting results. Age plays a role as well. As we get older, mineral absorption naturally declines. Older adults may need more attention to zinc intake, not because their bodies require more zinc, but because absorption efficiency decreases. Hair thinning with age is often linked to subtle mineral deficiencies rather than irreversible follicle damage. Medications can further alter zinc needs. Certain drugs increase zinc loss through urine or interfere with absorption. Over time, this creates a silent deficiency that shows up as thinning hair, slower regrowth, and weaker strands. Without personalizing zinc intake, these individuals may never correct the underlying issue. This is why a one-size-fits-all zinc protocol doesn't work. Two people can take the same supplement at the same dose and have completely different outcomes. One sees reduced shedding and stronger hair, while the other sees no change or even worsening hair quality. The difference isn't zinc itself, it's the body receiving it. Hair follicles don't respond to how much zinc you swallow. They respond to how much zinc reaches the root in a usable form. That depends on digestion, stress, diet, blood sugar, age, and lifestyle. When these factors are ignored, zinc becomes just another supplement with disappointing results. Personalizing zinc intake means stepping back and looking at the whole picture. It means asking whether zinc is truly deficient, whether absorption is impaired, and whether lifestyle factors are increasing zinc demand. When zinc intake matches your body's actual needs, hair follicles are finally able to shift back into a growth-supportive state. Instead of forcing hair to grow, the body is simply given what it needs to do what it was designed to do. Hair becomes stronger, shedding stabilizes, and regrowth becomes more consistent, not because of a magic dose, but because zinc is finally working in harmony with your unique biology. That's the real foundation of hair recovery. When people hear that zinc is important for hair growth, the very next question is always the same: how much zinc should I take? And that question alone already reveals the biggest misunderstanding about hair loss. The idea that there's one perfect dose that works for everyone is one of the main reasons people stay stuck with thinning hair, excessive shedding, or slow regrowth despite doing everything right. Zinc does not work like a drug where one standard dose produces the same effect in every body. Zinc works like a biological regulator. It supports systems that are already designed to function, and how well it works depends entirely on your internal environment. This is why zinc intake must be personalized if you want real, lasting improvement in hair health. Hair follicles are among the most metabolically active structures in the body. They divide rapidly, require constant protein synthesis, and depend on precise enzyme activity. Zinc is involved in all of these processes. Every time a follicle enters the growth phase, zinc is required for DNA replication, cellular repair, and keratin production. Without enough zinc, the follicle cannot maintain that growth phase efficiently, and hair either grows thinner, sheds earlier, or stops growing altogether. But here's where things get interesting. Zinc deficiency is not always about how much zinc you consume. It's about how much zinc your body can actually absorb, retain, and use. Two people can eat the same foods, take the same supplement, and have completely different zinc status at the cellular level. One of the biggest factors that determines zinc absorption is stomach acid. Zinc requires adequate stomach acid to be released from food and supplements. If stomach acid is low, zinc passes through the digestive system without being properly absorbed. Many people today unknowingly have low stomach acid due to chronic stress, aging, nutrient deficiencies, or long-term use of acid-suppressing medications. These individuals may believe they're getting enough zinc, yet their hair follicles remain deficient. Low stomach acid also leads to poor protein digestion. Since hair is made primarily of protein, this creates a double problem. Not only is zinc absorption reduced, but the raw materials needed to build hair strands are also compromised. In this situation, increasing zinc intake alone may not solve the issue unless digestion itself is addressed. Gut health plays another critical role. Zinc is absorbed mainly in the small intestine. If the intestinal lining is inflamed, damaged, or irritated, mineral absorption becomes inefficient. Conditions like chronic bloating, food sensitivities, irregular digestion, or long-term gut imbalance can significantly reduce zinc uptake. Even mild gut inflammation can quietly block minerals from reaching the bloodstream. This explains why some people experience hair loss despite eating a nutrient-dense diet. On paper, everything looks good, but at the cellular level, nutrients never reach the tissues that need them most. Hair follicles are especially sensitive to this kind of silent deficiency. Diet composition further changes zinc requirements. Zinc from animal foods is absorbed far more efficiently than zinc from plant sources. Red meat, shellfish, eggs, and dairy provide zinc in forms the body readily uses. Plant-based foods often contain compounds called phytates, which bind zinc and prevent it from being absorbed. This means someone eating a plant-heavy diet may technically consume enough zinc, yet still absorb much less than expected. As a result, zinc needs are not the same for everyone. A person consuming animal protein regularly may need very little supplemental zinc, while someone eating mostly grains and legumes may require more attention to zinc intake. This is not about one diet being good or bad. It's about understanding how different foods affect mineral availability. Stress is another major variable that dramatically changes zinc needs. Under stress, the body uses zinc at a much faster rate. Zinc is required to regulate cortisol, stabilize the nervous system, and support adrenal function. When stress becomes chronic, zinc stores are depleted quietly and consistently. Hair follicles are not a survival priority for the body. When zinc is limited, it is diverted toward essential functions like immune defense, hormone regulation, and nervous system stability. Hair growth becomes secondary. This is why hair shedding often increases during prolonged stress, even if diet and supplementation remain unchanged. Blood sugar imbalance also increases zinc demand. Zinc plays a key role in insulin production and glucose metabolism. Diets high in sugar and refined carbohydrates cause zinc to be used more rapidly and excreted more easily. Over time, this creates a functional zinc deficiency, even if intake appears adequate. When blood sugar fluctuates constantly, zinc is redirected toward metabolic control rather than tissue repair and hair growth. In these cases, zinc supplementation alone rarely fixes hair loss unless dietary patterns are also addressed. Age adds another layer of complexity. As people get older, nutrient absorption naturally declines. Digestive enzyme production decreases, stomach acid weakens, and intestinal efficiency drops. This means older individuals may require more careful attention to zinc intake, not because their bodies suddenly need more zinc, but because absorption is less efficient. Hair thinning associated with aging is often linked to subtle mineral deficiencies rather than permanent follicle damage. When zinc intake is adjusted appropriately, many people note improved hair strength and reduced shedding even later in life. Medications can further alter zinc requirements. Certain drugs increase zinc loss through urine or interfere with absorption in the gut. Over time, this leads to depletion that shows up as hair thinning, slower regrowth, and weakened strands. Without personalizing zinc intake, these underlying losses often go unnoticed. Another overlooked factor is sweating. Zinc is lost through sweat. People who exercise frequently, live in hot climates, or sweat heavily may lose more zinc than average. Their zinc needs may be higher even if their diet looks balanced. This is why copying someone else's zinc protocol is a mistake. What worked for one person may be completely wrong for another. Hair loss is not a single condition with a single cause. It is a symptom of internal imbalance, and zinc is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. Hair follicles do not respond to how much zinc you consume. They respond to how much zinc reaches them in a usable form. That depends on digestion, gut health, stress levels, diet quality, blood sugar stability, age, medications, and lifestyle. When zinc intake is too low for your specific situation, hair follicles struggle to maintain the growth phase, shedding increases, regrowth slows, and strands become thinner. But when zinc intake is too high relative to your needs, other imbalances can develop that also interfere with hair health. This is why personalization matters. Zinc should support the body, not overwhelm it. The goal is not to force hair growth, but to remove the obstacles preventing normal growth from happening. When zinc intake is aligned with your unique biology, something important happens. The body stops treating hair growth as a luxury and starts supporting it naturally. Follicles receive what they need to function properly. Shedding stabilizes. Hair strength improves. Regrowth becomes more consistent. This doesn't happen overnight because hair grows slowly. But when zinc is no longer a limiting factor, the entire scalp environment begins to shift. Hair becomes less fragile, more resilient, and better anchored at the root. The real takeaway is this: zinc is powerful, but only when it is personalized. There is no universal dose, no shortcut, and no one-size-fits-all solution. Hair recovery begins when zinc intake matches your digestion, your diet, your stress level, and your overall mineral balance. When you stop guessing and start supporting your body intelligently, hair growth becomes a natural outcome of improved internal health. And that is where lasting results truly begin. When people start using zinc for hair growth, the focus is almost always on deficiency. Everyone talks about how low zinc causes hair loss, thinning, and shedding. And that's true. But there's another side of this conversation that almost no one talks about, and it's just as important. Too much zinc can quietly create hair problems of its own, often without Opal realizing what's actually happening. This is where many well-meaning hair routines go wrong. Someone hears zinc is good for hair, so they take it every day. Then they increase the dose. Then they stay on that high dose for months or even years. At first, things may improve. Shedding might slow. Hair might feel stronger. But over time, progress stalls and sometimes hair quality actually worsens. Thinning continues. Texture changes. Hair loses strength or color. And the person is confused because they're still taking the right supplement. What's happening behind the scenes is mineral imbalance, and zinc is at the center of it. Zinc and copper have a very specific relationship in the body. They work together, but they also compete with each other for absorption. When zinc intake becomes too high for too long, it blocks copper absorption in the intestines. This doesn't happen overnight. It happens slowly and quietly, which is why so many people miss it. Copper is not the enemy of hair growth. In fact, copper is essential for healthy hair follicles. Copper plays a major role in collagen production, connective tissue strength, oxygen delivery, and blood vessel integrity. Hair follicles rely on all of these functions to stay strong and productive. Copper is also involved in melanin production, which gives hair its natural color. When copper levels drop too low, hair can lose pigment earlier than expected. This is one of the reasons premature graying is sometimes linked to long-term mineral imbalance rather than genetics alone. When zinc intake is excessive, copper absorption declines. Over time, copper deficiency develops, even if dietary copper intake looks adequate on paper. Hair follicles begin to suffer, not because zinc is missing, but because balance has been lost. One of the most common mistakes people make is assuming that if zinc helps hair, more zinc must help even more. But minerals don't work that way. They operate in ratios. When one mineral goes too high, another often gets pushed too low. Hair growth depends on harmony, not dominance. Copper plays a critical role in iron metabolism as well. Without adequate copper, iron cannot be properly utilized, even if iron levels appear normal. This can reduce oxygen delivery to the scalp and hair follicles. When follicles receive less oxygen and fewer nutrients, hair growth slows and strands become weaker. Blood flow to the scalp is another overlooked factor. Copper supports the formation and maintenance of blood vessels. When copper drops, circulation can become less efficient. Hair follicles depend on a steady supply of oxygen and nutrients. Reduced circulation means reduced support for growth. This is why some people experience thinning hair or weaker regrowth after long-term high-dose zinc use. They assume zinc has stopped working, when in reality, zinc has tipped the balance too far. The signs of excess zinc are not always obvious. Many people don't experience dramatic symptoms right away. Instead, they notice subtle changes. Hair texture becomes dry or brittle. Regrowth slows. Hair strands feel weaker. Shedding continues despite consistent supplementation. In some cases, fatigue, low energy, or reduced immune resilience may also appear. Because hair grows slowly, it takes time for these imbalances to show up. By the time someone connects zinc to their hair issues, the imbalance may have been developing for months. Another problem with excess zinc is that it can suppress immune balance when copper becomes too low. Copper is involved in immune regulation and antioxidant defense. Hair follicles are sensitive to inflammatory signals. When oxidative stress increases due to mineral imbalance, follicles may shift prematurely into the shedding phase. Zinc excess can also interfere with gut health over time. High doses of zinc can irritate the digestive tract in some individuals, further impairing nutrient absorption. When absorption drops, not only copper, but other trace minerals can fall out of balance as well. Hair loss rarely has a single cause. It's usually the result of multiple small imbalances stacking on top of each other. Excess zinc is often one of those hidden contributors. This is why short-term zinc supplementation can be helpful, while long-term high-dose use can become problematic. Zinc is meant to correct deficiency, not override the body's natural regulation systems indefinitely. The body has built-in feedback mechanisms to maintain mineral balance. When zinc intake overwhelms those systems, the body adapts in ways that are not always beneficial for hair. Another important point is that zinc requirements change over time. What your body needed 6 months ago may not be what it needs today. Continuing the same high-dose protocol without reassessment increases the risk of imbalance. Many people also stack zinc from multiple sources without realizing it. Zinc from multivitamins, immune supplements, hair formulas, and fortified foods can add up quickly. What seems like a moderate dose may actually be quite high when all sources are combined. Hair follicles are extremely sensitive to internal changes. They respond not only to nutrient availability but also to hormonal balance, circulation, inflammation, and oxidative stress. Copper supports all of these processes in subtle but powerful ways. When copper levels drop, collagen formation weakens. The connective tissue that anchors hair follicles becomes less resilient. Hair becomes easier to shed and harder to regrow. Copper is also required for the enzyme that cross-links collagen and elastin. Without this support, the scalp environment becomes less stable, and hair follicles lose their structural support. This doesn't mean copper should be taken blindly either. Just like zinc, copper must be balanced. The goal is not to swing from one extreme to the other, but to restore harmony. The key takeaway here is that zinc is not a standalone solution. It is part of a mineral network. When one mineral dominates for too long, the entire system shifts. This is why personalization matters so much. Zinc intake should be adjusted based on duration, dose, diet, and individual response. Hair improvement should be monitored not just by reduced shedding, but by overall hair quality, texture, strength, and scalp health. If hair initially improves with zinc and then stalls or worsens, that is often a sign that balance has been lost. The solution is not always more zinc. Sometimes it's stepping back and reassessing the entire mineral picture. Hair growth is not about overpowering the body. It's about supporting it intelligently. Zinc helps when it fills a true deficiency. Copper helps when it supports structure, circulation, and pigmentation. Both are needed, and neither should dominate. When zinc and copper are balanced correctly, hair follicles receive the signals and resources they need to stay in the growth phase longer. Shedding becomes more controlled, hair strands become stronger, color and texture remain healthier. This balance is what allows hair to thrive over the long term, not just temporarily. The biggest mistake people make is chasing quick fixes. Hair responds to consistency, balance, and patience. Minerals work slowly but powerfully when they are aligned with the body's needs. If you want lasting hair improvement, stop thinking in terms of single nutrients and start thinking in terms of balance. Zinc is important. Too much of a good thing can quietly become part of the problem. When zinc intake is appropriate, copper remains supported, circulation stays strong, and hair follicles function the way they were designed to. That's when hair growth becomes sustainable, not forced. And that's the difference between short-term improvement and long-term hair health. When it comes to hair growth, most people look for a single nutrient, a single supplement, or a single trick that will suddenly solve everything. But hair doesn't work that way. Hair growth is the result of many systems working together, and zinc only works when it fits into that bigger picture. This is why personalizing zinc intake goes far beyond choosing a dose. It includes timing, food sources, absorption, lifestyle, and the overall internal environment that determines whether zinc ever reaches the hair follicle in the first place. Zinc can only help hair growth if it is absorbed properly. Taking zinc at the wrong time or with the wrong foods can significantly reduce how much your body actually uses. Zinc competes with other minerals like calcium, iron, and magnesium for absorption. If zinc is taken alongside high calcium foods or iron supplements, much of it may never be absorbed at all. On paper, it looks like you're doing everything right, but at the cellular level, hair follicles are still being deprived. This is why timing matters. Zinc tends to be absorbed more efficiently when taken away from large mineral-heavy ALS. Personalizing zinc intake means understanding not just what you take, but how your daily routine affects absorption. Small adjustments can make a noticeable difference in how zinc supports hair growth. Food sources also matter more than people realize. Zinc from whole foods comes packaged with cofactors that improve utilization. Animal-based zinc sources tend to be more bioavailable, meaning the body can use them more efficiently. This doesn't mean supplements are useless, but it does mean supplements work best when they complement a nutrient-dense diet rather than replace it. When zinc intake is personalized through food first, supplementation becomes a supportive tool instead of a crutch. Hair follicles respond better when nutrients come from balanced sources that support digestion, blood flow, and cellular repair. Another critical piece of personalization is protein intake. Zinc works closely with amino acids to build keratin, the primary structural protein in hair. If protein intake is low, zinc cannot do its job effectively, no matter how much you take. Hair strands may grow slower, thinner, or weaker because the raw materials simply aren't there. This is why some people take zinc faithfully and still see poor hair results. The issue is not zinc itself, but the lack of supporting nutrients. Personalizing zinc intake means looking at the full nutritional context, not isolating one mineral. Inflammation is another major barrier to hair growth that zinc alone can. Overcome. Chronic inflammation disrupts blood flow, increases oxidative stress, and pushes hair follicles into the shedding phase. Zinc has anti-inflammatory properties, but it works best when lifestyle factors are aligned with that goal. Sleep quality plays a massive role here. Poor sleep increases cortisol, disrupts mineral balance, and accelerates zinc depletion. Hair follicles are especially sensitive to stress hormones. If sleep is inconsistent, zinc will be diverted towards stress regulation rather than hair repair. Personalizing zinc intake also means acknowledging that supplements cannot override lifestyle patterns. Zinc supports the body, but it does not cancel out chronic sleep deprivation, constant stress, or blood sugar instability. Blood sugar control is one of the most underestimated factors in hair health. When blood sugar spikes and crashes repeatedly, zinc is consumed rapidly to support insulin function. This leaves less zinc available for hair growth. In this scenario, even a well-designed zinc protocol may fall short unless dietary habits improve. Scalp health is another overlooked element. Zinc helps regulate oil production and supports the scalp's natural defense system. But if the scalp is constantly inflamed, irritated, or overloaded with harsh products, zinc's benefits are limited. Personalizing zinc intake includes reducing external stressors on the scalp, so internal support can actually take effect. Hydration also affects how nutrients move rough the body. Zinc is transported through the bloodstream to reach hair follicles. If hydration is poor, circulation slows and nutrient delivery becomes less efficient. Hair follicles may not receive zinc consistently, even if intake is adequate. Another important aspect of personalization is duration. Zinc is not meant to be taken indefinitely at high doses. It is most effective when used strategically, adjusted over time, and reassessed based on how the body responds. Hair growth is slow, so patience is required, but blind consistency without evaluation often leads to imbalance. Personalizing zinc intake means paying attention to feedback from the body. Reduced shedding, improved scalp comfort, and stronger hair texture are positive signs. Digestive discomfort, fatigue, or stalled progress may indicate the need for adjustment. Exercise and physical activity also influence zinc needs. Moderate activity improves circulation and nutrient delivery to the scalp. Excessive training without adequate recovery can increase zinc loss through sweat and stress. Personalization means matching zinc intake to activity level rather than copying generic recommendations. Environmental exposure plays a role as well. Pollution, heavy metals, and toxins increase oxidative stress and raise zinc demand. In these situations, zinc may be used for detox support rather than hair growth. Supporting antioxidant intake and reducing toxin exposure allows zinc to be used more effectively for tissue repair. Hair follicles are incredibly responsive to internal balance. When the body senses stability, adequate nutrition, and low stress, hair growth becomes a natural priority again. Zinc acts as a signal that conditions are safe for growth, but only when the rest of the system agrees. This is why zinc works best as part of a personalized protocol rather than a standalone solution. When timing is correct, absorption is optimized, diet is supportive, stress is managed, and lifestyle factors are aligned, zinc becomes a powerful ally for hair health. The biggest shift happens when people stop chasing quick fixes and start supporting their body intelligently. Hair growth improves not because zinc is forcing follicles to grow, but because obstacles are being removed. Personalized zinc intake creates an environment where hair Follicles can stay in the growth phase longer, produce stronger strands, and recover more efficiently after shedding. Over time, this leads to thicker-looking hair, better density, and improved resilience. The real goal is not rapid regrowth at any cost. The goal is sustainable hair health. Zinc helps create that foundation when it is used thoughtfully and in harmony with the body's needs. When zinc intake is tailored to your diet, digestion, stress level, activity, and overall lifestyle, hair growth becomes a natural reflection of improved internal health. That's when results last, not just for a few weeks, but long term. This is the difference between hoping a supplement works and understanding why it works. And when you understand that, hair growth stops being a mystery and starts becoming a predictable outcome of balance.